Jake Delhomme, Jonathan Stewart, back on Radio Row, and we have the pleasure of interviewing, talking with our dear friend,
your favorite center,
our great center, first-class human being, Ryan Kalil.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
I mean
Appreciate
that.
it.
I mean
Yeah.
that. It puts a smile on my face to be able to see you.
It always puts a smile on my face. He's a model now.
He is. He is. You know, we tell a story about Ryan. So it's the draft of 2007. And I have a few guys over at the house, and we're watching the draft. And my wife cooked, and it's going on. And we signed Justin Hartwig to a big free agent center deal from the Tennessee Titans. And it's second round, and, you know, they keep scrolling at the bottom. You know, Mel Kiper's best available. Well, Kalil's stuck. He's just been there.
Oh, I remember.
And sure enough, Carolina Panthers, second-round pick, center, USC, Ryan Kalil. And I remember I raised both hands up, and I hollered, "That's how you draft!" And Brett Bazinet, who was a quarterback with us, he was like, "What do you mean by that? We just signed Hartwig." I said, "It doesn't matter." I said, "This kid was so highly rated on our board." Marty I kind of had an idea, you know, and he was so highly rated, and he was just there. We took the best player available.
Yeah.
My gosh, it worked out.
I wish the O-line at that time was as excited about me getting drafted as
well,
you
listen,
were.
I understand, but like maybe there was one person who probably wasn't as excited, but everybody else was excited.
Well, not only the starting guy, but also I remember Jordan Gross wasn't excited because him and Jeff Handgardner were really close, and so it was almost like, well, Jeff then, because he was kind of like our utility
Correct.
guy, and so I think there was a threat there that I was coming at. That's the hardest part about the NFL is like you build such close relationships, and then you're asked to, you know, endear these guys that come in and teach them, but then also you got buddies who are fighting for jobs, and that's always been a tough part about playing the league.
You know, my rookie year, I felt your embrace, probably from your own experience of, like, I don't want the next guy to feel how I felt.
Yeah.
I always remember that. It's stuck in my mind. I was like, man, this Ryan Kalil guy is really nice. because I felt welcome. Because, again, here I am in a walking boot.
Right.
And guys are looking at me like, oh, you're the first-round draft pick? You know, and we already had D'Angelo. And so I felt kind of like an outsider. But he absolutely made me feel like I was welcome.
That's Ryan. So, look, let's get into what you're doing now because I'm not so sure people in Carolina truly understand how successful, entrepreneurial, Ryan Kalil. Let's go. Give it to us.
Media.
Please don't be modest because we're proud. We're proud of your success, what you're doing, because your hands are in a lot of things.
I hear you. I think I'm such an offensive lineman by trade that it's nobody cares about whether you played well or you're not. You just kind of like put your head down and keep grinding. And so, I'm doing a lot of stuff that I've wanted to do forever, and things that I had been in the off seasons of Carolina would come back to LA and intern or like job shadow under a guy. I think early on I really felt the weight of guys saying the NFL stood for not for long, you know, because there was guys coming out of college that I thought were going to be first-round picks, or guys that I thought were going to play forever, be Hall of Fame guys, who were not first-round picks, who were getting cut within 1 or 2 seasons. I mean, I was second-round draft pick. I was feeling pretty good. When I got there, I forget who the running back was. We cut him after that training camp. He was my pick the year before. So I was like, oh, this is
Eric Shelton.
Eric Shelton. I was like, this is cutthroat.
Right.
This business is cutthroat. So I really took that to heart. Every offseason I'd go back. I'm like, what am I excited about? What am I passionate about? I always wanted to get into production, film and television. And so, you know, going to USC, one of the most prestigious film schools, and the alum there, and obviously living close to Hollywood, I would, in the offseason, I would train early in the morning, take care of business, making sure I was strong and get ready for the next season. And then the rest of the day, I was interning, I was hustling, I was networking. I was just trying to learn and find out. So since retiring, I started a production company with Blake Griffin called Mortal Media. And yeah, we've been 3-4 years now. We produced our first movie for Hulu. We did a TV show for Apple TV. We're starting to do a ton of stuff in animation. And And then recently we started getting an unscripted space, doing more sports docs. And
You have to be one of the only ex-NFL players to do that, right? I mean, there can't be many more.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys. I mean, there's a lot of athletes that they like the idea of having a production company. One of the things I really want to do is make sure I didn't get lost in that, because there's kind of a stigma around that a little bit. I think Hollywood likes athletes. They like sports, so they'll set guys up. They'll do these kind of projects with them that are sort of, they just got to show up and put their name on it. And I just didn't want to do that. And so we kind of really stayed under the radar for a few years because we didn't want it to come off as a vanity project. But there's other guys that are doing really cool stuff. Sports related now are starting to get into scripted stuff. Like the Manning brothers are starting to get into TV, and they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. So there's athletes that have like production companies, but we've really tried to root ourselves in stuff that we're excited about: comedy, sci-fi, things that are not sports adjacent. Because when we got out there, every agent, every manager in the Sun was pitching us all things sports. And they were like visibly upset when we were like, no, I think we're going to go try this thing that like Spielberg's doing. And they're like, okay, well, good luck.
Yeah.
And so we just kept grinding and figuring it out. And now we've started to pivot into more sports-related content. And so the first thing we're actually doing is we're going to do like a follow doc around this football team that we are now owners of down in Monterrey, Mexico. And our boy here is part of the ownership group. I would love to get some of your horse money into it and bring you in as well. So I'm just going to keep calling buddies and trying to get everybody in. But I'm really excited by it. Obviously, there's a lot we don't know that we're trying to figure out. There's the language barrier. There's a cultural barrier. But it's football. It's good quality football. There's a lot of American players on the team. You love this kid who's our quarterback. He's from Texas, and he reminds me a lot of you. He's just like a really great, good old boy, dude, and obviously really slow. And I'm kidding. No, but we're excited. And you know, the other part of it is there's the production side of it, but it's also the excuse to kind of get with buddies. And just like fans, we all in the locker room, we gripe about how much better we would run a team. You know, we're very critical of management and ownership. So now we get to put our money where our mouths are and really try to see if we know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah. I remember when you called me and you're like, hey, you wanna own a football team? I'm like, what? You know how much money that's going to be? He's like, no. I have an opportunity down in Mexico. And I'm like,
then you were like, soccer? I don't know much about soccer. I was like, no, football.
Yeah, and so it's super exciting.
Yeah.
I think it's everything that you set out to do. It is so successful. I mean,
that's not true.
No, and I'm not saying it in a sense of like immediate, but successful in the trajectory. Right.
Well, I think that's the carryover from football. I will say, like, because people always ask, because there's like from learning how to block a massive one technique or try to reach a three technique. There's no transition of that into any other business.
Right.
So, those sort of like universal values that you learn from a young age in football all the way to the highest level, I think they do translate. And so the thing I've taken from football, especially playing offensive line, is just work ethic. Like there's no shortcuts.
Right.
It's doing boring, repetitional stuff day after day after day. And you find those things in businesses or whatever it is you're pursuing that you aren't as good at, and you just figure out what those sort of like mainstays are, what the foundational what the foundational techniques of that particular thing are, and you just rep them over and over and over again, and it's boring. And then on the last part of that is like the amount of times I've gotten embarrassed in front of my teammates on national television in front of millions of people.
Meeting rooms.
Yeah, getting Jake sacked and Jake getting up, and we played Chicago and Jake getting up and he goes, who the hell let that guy in? Double down, making you feel even that much worse about the situation that you know was bad.
I was just getting you hardened.
You did. And by the way, it worked. And that's the point I'm making is resilience is something you learn, especially playing offensive line. So I've had a lot of failures and it doesn't faze me. And I just keep working and I just keep showing up the next day. And then you just don't know like what chip it is that you're going to stack that's going to be the thing that takes you over the top. So, you know, and again, I was going to get to that. That's something I learned early on. I had incredible veterans like him and Jordan Gross and they've stayed with me forever, and they're going to continue to serve me in whatever I pursue.
So we're going to pivot toward football. Panthers now. I'm assuming you still follow the Panthers.
Of course.
Okay. So we signed 2 guards in the offseason to a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do? Okay, so we had Bryce, who struggled as a rookie, but we struggled as a team. And then we signed these 2 massive guards, and they come in, and Robert Hunt would be your guy. I mean, he is just that.
You're the third person to tell me that this week.
There's just something about it.
His energy is like
Damien's great, but Damien's more quiet. Rob is just this big teddy bear, massive human being that just.
Kedrick Vincent.
Okay.
He's ideal.
But like a little less raw.
Yeah.
What did you see?
Does he make up stories like Kedrick or no?
No. What did you see from the Panthers this year? You know, started off rough with Bryce, and then we had the O-line. But as the season went on, Andy played, and Andy gets unfortunate car wreck, and then Bryce comes back in, and then he just starts taking off, and you just see the team respond to him. I mean, what just from the outside looking in, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on the Panthers and Bryce and that O-line and what we've done?
It's a weird thing, but I always try to look at like holistically, like the energy of it, the body language of a team. Like you could tell a lot about a team and like what they're doing in between plays and because I don't know the schemes. You know what I mean? Like that's what's always funny to me is even us players, unless you're in it and you're like around the team all the time, like I can't tell you who's responsible for what or who messed up. I can probably guess, probably better than the next guy, but you just don't know. So you try to find these like ancillary things that you can judge a team on. And so it just felt different this season. It felt like a different kind of energy. It didn't feel like a defeatist energy like it did a few years back when I was really heavily watching and trying to find out like where they were going with this. So my hope is just that they keep continuity for these guys and they keep pushing it, and because that's the only thing that I've seen is just not wanting to panic and start making a ton of different moves and obviously I'm biased. I love Dan.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's a great football mind. I think he's a great human. So whatever he's sort of laying out for the plan for this team, I hope they stick with it.
I think we've kind of seen that. Like, I've said this. It's the first time since I started doing radio in 19. Okay, we're going in a certain direction. We're going in the right direction. And I just think you kind of just keep building this team.
Yeah, like celebrating the small wins, it seems like that's where the energy goes, right? Like, you remember, like, the seasons where we're not making the playoffs, right? But for whatever reason, we're in the locker room. We see each other day in and day out. It's like, hey, let's just go out there and have fun at this point. Like, and also too, you're playing for a job,
right?
So, like, understanding the business, understanding the mode in which people tick, I think is where the Carolina Panthers are getting better. Because you got to remember, 2020, no one was talking to no one. You know, you had masks on. Like, I couldn't imagine what playing football was like during 2020.
Yeah, I'll say the best teams I've ever been on, they had a really great older core.
Yeah.
And I think the more Carolina can have guys who are in positions, obviously you want to bring in guys that can help you win, but I think just as valuable are guys that can teach younger guys how to be pros, especially in this day and age, especially where college football has changed so much.
Yeah.
I imagine, at least this was my experience on my way out, it just felt like more younger guys were more entitled than ever before.
Right.
And so I think having the ability, going back to what we were talking about, to humble guys, to teach guys how to be pros, that's what feels different. That's what I've heard has felt different in this locker room. And so it's just a tremendous amount of value because, like you're saying, even if it's not a winning season anymore, you got nothing to play for, you are playing to teach guys good habits. You are playing to teach guys how to be a pro, how to keep building on the things that, even though in that season don't mean anything, grand scheme, they're gonna add up and they're gonna make you a better football team.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday when we were discussing with Bryce here, you know, he talked about coming back, had a couple of wins after he got back into the starting role. Then he had a bye, and in a couple of days, he said, I was able to just kind of like take a deep breath. And he said, I just felt different. Like I was going to enjoy this more. It's kind of similar, and I'll bring a story back up to you. So 07 draft pick, and things weren't good in 07. I had Tommy John surgery week 3, and I was a loud voice. I was, so I wasn't around much. And you with the Hartwick situation and you taking somebody's job, it wasn't cohesive. So 08 comes about, and we're a 12-4 football team, but we became a different football team. We were a running football team, and we were playing a Monday night football game against Tampa Bay. and he knows where I'm going with this, and we are destroying them. And the second half, it's you and it's D'Angelo, and it's just boom, boom. We're in the huddle, late third quarter. I'll never forget. It's a moment that's stuck in time. And Ryan, we have a big run, and Ryan says something, and I can't say it here, and he goes, "That's what I'm talking about. We're a certain type of offense, and we're going to impose our will." I mean, it came out, and I'll never forget Jordan Gross. We looked at each other, and in typical Jordan fashion, Jordan goes, "Whoa, tough guy."
Whoa, guy, just
and this
relax.
is in the middle of a game. And Kalil looks at both of us, and he goes, "Screw both of you. Get the huddle." But that was it. That was it. Like, we needed him. We needed that. And that was toward the end of his second year. And then Bryce, he decided, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to play. And then he's leading. You're talking about energy. He leads the team out the huddle, out the entrance now. I'm watching him on the sideline. It's just different.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a hard transition because you became one of the dominant voices, right? So you had big personalities. You, Jordan, Greg Olsen comes in. Cam comes in. What's the fine line of letting a younger guy, like, okay, hey, you need to step up more? How does that work? That's a fine line. I think that's always so intriguing to me about a locker room.
Yeah, well, and I think it starts with the head coach, too. And I thought Ron always did a good job of letting guys have their personalities, but he knew where to kind of put the lanes to make sure, or the guardrails to make sure guys weren't getting out of line, or it wasn't competing with other voices that needed to be heard. And that's not always the case. Some coaches like to come in and micromanage all that stuff, and it makes for a sticky locker room. So I think Carolina has a good one in their head coach, and I think what I've heard is that they're starting to find their personality and their voices, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I think Ron fathered us in a sense. You have a dad that you respect, and when he says to do something, you do it. But when you're, like, in the living room and you're playing and jumping around, doing whatever you're doing, your personalities are showing, he's going to let you do it, right? Until something gets broken. Right. Like, don't break anything, basically, right? Just keep everything in place. But he did a fantastic job of just letting guys like Cam. If he didn't let Cam be Cam, we would not have been the team that we were, right? If he didn't let you do pranks and jokes and all the things that we needed to keep those days going. Like, I looked forward to the holidays. I looked forward to
the productions of Ryan Kalil. I missed that. I was gone. Yeah. I played terrible and got cut, so I missed the true evolution.
Oh, man, it was amazing because it was.
Yeah, you talk about reps for my next career. I was getting so many, and I was so grateful to John Fox and Coach Rivera for letting me, bring some levity to the team and do that stuff in my free time. He let me miss one preseason. He's probably going to be mad that I'm saying this. He let me miss one preseason game. It was like the fourth preseason game. We were traveling somewhere. He's like, hey, the guys need a video. So I got to stay home and, like, make a video.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, and everybody was confused, like, where is he? And I was like, that was my best video.
That's how you know you're so good.
That's knowing the pulse of the team, too.
Yeah.
So, offensive line. Yeah, you're an offensive lineman. Like, what does that do in a run game for a football team? Because I think, to me, Carolina, that's the basis of Carolina is a solid defense and a run game. I mean, yeah, we had Steve. He's a generational. We know that. But, like, we ran the ball. And then with you and D'Angelo, we ran the ball. And now Chuba Hubbard, the two big guards and all that, we run the ball. That's – I don't know. I just – from an offensive line perspective, what does that do knowing, hey, it's on our shoulders this week?
Yeah, I think it depends on the scheme too. And I felt like I was in different offenses from college all the way to, that one year we don't talk about that I played for the Jets. And I do feel like I think personnel is a big part of it. But obviously the more guys you have that can extend the play and the more things you give defenses to run on, the easier it is for an offensive line. But when you have an offensive line that can also just, like, hit the ground running and you can run you can run zone stuff. You can run power. You can run all kinds of gap scheme things. I mean, it's hard. It's detrimental to a defense, especially when you get late in the game and you just start wearing guys out.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jordan and I would always talk about this because we would get in games and we had so many playmakers, but we also had a better pulse of, like, what was happening on the field than the guys on the sidelines or even up in the box. Yeah. And so, like, we would always get mad at the coordinators because, like every player, we all know what plays. We know exactly. We have all the answers. But I do feel like there were certain moments where we had a good feel for the energy and the stamina of the team that we were playing. And so there were games that we sort of we put it all out there and kind of we were like, hey, you need to run this. This is what we need to do and stop going back to this other stuff. I know we have all these options, but I'm telling you, these guys are dog tired. And we did. Like, there was games, I'll never forget the game we played against Cleveland. And I forget the play we ran. It was some kind of trap play where Trey Turner had a pull.
Plant.
It was plant.
Yeah.
And we ran
50
it.
plant.
We just kept running it over and over. It also shows you how dumb defenses are. We had the same call for it, and they still weren't calling.
Odd plant.
And we just kept running, and we were gaining. Like 6, 7, 8 yards of play. It was bananas. But I just remember Trey was exhausted. I remember the fourth time we called it, he was like, "Damn!" And but it's true. Like, you can really gauge guys in how they're, both by how they feel when you're pushing them and how they're trying to anchor in, but also just on their face. That's why I'm saying, like, I know it sounds abstract, but watching a game and you're seeing in the cameras now do such a great job in showing you all the in between stuff. Like, you could watch guys and see what the body language is like, and you can really tell like which guys are really performing well, like they're dog tired, but they're holding it together, and the guys that just never been taught to like hold on to your emotions. And so that stuff's important, and it's been fun watching these guys grow.
I think that's interesting because you can really get a read on what is working if the offensive line is telling you, hey, look, we block these guys way better on this play.
It's that you win in the trenches.
Yeah.
And listen, we had a guy anchoring it.
Yeah.
Man, we can't thank you enough for stopping by. Your story's awesome. It warms my heart to see you, man.
Same.
As
Same.
much
Miss
success
you guys.
as you have on the field, but also off the field, what you've done. It's that's great. And your dad gets a lot of credit.
He does.
Because Ryan was accepted, I believe, in high school to the USC Film School. Was it, or it's in college?
College.
He got accepted after his sophomore year, freshman year.
But then I couldn't go because it was the same time as football practice.
And his dad said, his dad played 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And for the Bills, I believe. And his dad said, buddy, just trust me. I think you're going to get a chance to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And if you do that, the door will be open for you again.
And I said, you're my dad. You're supposed to say that.
One of the best families ever. Mom can
awesome.
sing.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sister can sing. You can sing. Can your brother sing?
No, definitely not.
Well, thanks again, man. You're
Appreciate
a
it,
gem, bro. Good seeing you.
Good singing dude. And he's a model. He's got model hands now.